All right. Well, hello, everybody. I am here with Mechelle Freeman. Michelle's an Olympian and a professional runner, and most importantly, the founder of TrackGirlz. So we're really excited to talk with you today, Mechelle. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, I want to first start off with just how are you? How are things going? I know you were in Tokyo, so tell us a little bit about what's been going on and how things are going right now.
Oh my goodness. I know everything is just fast paced, I would say. I mean, I'm a sprinter by trade, but I'm like, uh-oh, I'm 41 in 2 weeks, so I'm trying to keep up with this pace. I don't know how long I can keep up with sprinter pace throughout my life, but everything's fast paced, but at the same time, I'm grateful for the opportunities and what I've been doing. I recently just returned back from running hood to coast. I went to Oregon and actually ran from Mount Hood to the Pacific Ocean in Oregon. And
Wow.
that
How
was,
long is that?
it's 200 miles. I'm a
Oh my
Lululemon
goodness.
ambassador. Yeah. So they created a Lululemon team, and it was all strangers who came together and was in a van for 25 hours and 53 minutes to complete this course. But when I got the route and I realized that my sprint qualities wouldn't be helpful in this situation, I was a little concerned, but I realized I had to run 15 miles and 7 miles at one time and then 2 other legs at 4 miles. But I survived, and
Yes.
and here I am today.
Oh my goodness. That sounds fantastic. I don't know if I'd be able to do that. So kudos to you for taking that on. That sounds
I
like a
didn't
very
think
big
I was
ambition.
going to be able to do it, but here, if I did it, and I'm a 100-meter specialist when I was in my day, then anybody can do it.
Uh,
We
well,
had
let's,
such, you know what? We had such a diverse team. We had someone who lost his legs
hmm,
and was running with prosthetics.
wow.
And he was running, 7 miles, and he had more than 15 miles than not. Yeah, he had about 16 miles to run. And then we just had an amazing group of people from all different backgrounds and coming from different corners
That's
of the
so cool.
country. So yeah, it was awesome. A great team.
Oh, I love that. Well, I want to talk about your running career. Competed at the Olympics. You're Olympian. Now you're a relay coach. You were there in Tokyo this year for the Summer Games. Tell us a little bit about your sports experience. What it's been like to be in the world of professional running.
Oh well, I didn't realize running would take me this far, but I started running when I was a young girl, just street racing. Like I was always fast, and when the boys would challenge me and be like, let's race right now, and so I was taking boys' money since I was 7. But running has been such a foundation of my life. It's provided access in multiple areas, from higher education to the friends that I carry with me today. So it's a thread that has truly changed my life, and so that is exactly what I hope to do for the next generation.
Yeah. So tell us about that empowerment for the next generation. How did Track Girls get started, and how did you actually come to that realization that you could use track to empower girls? Was it just your own experience? Like
Mhm.
what was that motivation and kind of light bulb moment?
Yeah, well, the light bulb moment was, my background is in corporate marketing. So, I've been in ad agencies and on the client side of marketing. And I was particularly working at a marketing agency in Atlanta at this time. And I had just finished my career as a professional athlete, and I went back into corporate marketing, and they had a roster of athletes that they represented, and I realized there were no track and field athletes, and particularly women, because
Hmm.
I've been called a track girl since I was 14. So I'm like, where are the track girls?
Yeah.
But he told me that they just weren't relevant beyond the Olympic Games. So every 4 years, I realized that he represented the thought that I felt like the what was the common thought of everyone outside of the sport, and that was that track and field is not relevant until the Olympic Games. And so I wanted to change that, because in that moment, I personally knew, including myself, of a lot of women and also men who were very influential and impactful and trailblazers, and their relevance wasn't just tied to their track and field event. And so in that moment, I wanted to show that and provide a platform for consistency to share these stories and these examples of influencers and role models in the sport. And so that's what I did. And once I started that, I realized that track and field was the number one, and still is the number one participatory sport for girls in middle and high school in the US. And so I realized that, hey, track and field was not only an access point for me, but it could be an access point for other girls. And so that's why I really took the time to, instead of being at work and working on what I needed to be, I started putting energy into creating this brand, TrackGirlz. And eventually I just left and focused on it full time in 2015.
Wow. What was that transition like? How did you figure out how to start a nonprofit or how to create this movement? What did you have a mentor? Like, how did you navigate that?
You know what? My husband would have wanted me to do that a little bit differently, because I would have spent dollars a little bit differently. I would say that. But when I started, I was so excited and passionate about it that I just used my personal experience of I approached it initially as a brand, like creating a brand. Like that's what I knew. I was about brands, creating brands, managing brands. And so I knew that TrackGirlz was a brand, and it already existed. It was a community that existed. It was a hashtag that existed. But I just wanted to breathe life in it and make it tangible. So the first thing I did was trademark the name, and just to make sure that I was moving in a space that I owned, how I wanted to communicate what I was doing. And so TrackGirlz was natural because, like I said, it already existed. It wasn't anything that needed to be created. It just needed to be pumped up and brought to life. And initially my vision was that it would start out as workshops where I can connect young girls to sport-specific female role models. And I knew I had the network. I was an Olympic athlete at that time. Although I was retired, I was still closely working with the sport in the athlete advisory committee. So I was still very involved in the sport. And I just wanted to make sure that I provided those experiences of high quality access points to the sport, to mentorship, and let them know how this is not just about track and field, but how the sport can be a platform to change your life. And so that's what I started with. I started out in Arizona. That's where I was living at the time. I had my first workshop. I had Mechelle Carter, Olympic gold medalist, Natasha Haston, Olympic gold medalist. I had experts in the field from nutrition and mental mindset approach, and it came together really well. I sold out, and I was like, man, this is great. It was awesome. But I initially started out as an LLC because when it goes back to this moment when I was 18. And I was at the University of South Carolina, and I was majoring in journalism and mass communications. And after your freshman year, you had to choose a specific track. And it was either advertising or PR or broadcasting or writing. And I was like, man, I felt like, I was stuck between advertising and nonprofit, but I was like, nonprofit is that. Nonprofit is no money. And I was young, I was 18. I'm like, I need to make money. So I always had this connotation with nonprofit, not really understanding like the service being a priority and things like that. Even though that was the intention, that I wanted to serve from the initial inception of this idea of creating this platform for women in the sport. So I moved in the direction of the LLC, started doing these workshops, and I started doing apparel because I was like, if I have apparel and the girls can see TrackGirlz and they can represent this community. I did that for about 2 years and realized that the as a profit business, that wasn't the objective of what I was trying to do. And so 2018, I really committed to the service intention of what was placed on my heart to even create with TrackGirlz. And so that's what I did. I finally respected the fact that this was the intention of the call of what I was doing. And so I reshaped the business to operate in that manner. So we have been officially a nonprofit since 2018.
I love that. And I love that mostly because it was a trial of like, hey, let's do it this way. And then you said, you know what, this isn't working the way that I want it to. Let's reevaluate. I think a lot of people may have just said, oh, I'll keep going down this path until it works. So kudos to you for like sitting and thinking and being like, you know what, I think a nonprofit is more what we need to become. So I love that story.
I mean, you know what, when you start operating and you realize like, oh, wait, for a for-profit business, the priority is how we making money, right? And so when you're in there, you're doing workshops and you're working with girls who may be in an underserved community, and we started realizing that we have to have scholarships, of course. And then when corporations want to give money and it's not a nonprofit, then, you realize you're facing certain barriers. So when I wanted to operate in a manner to really service, I was not set up in the manner to do that. So that's what I had to change.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I think it's a great piece of advice for anyone listening that like, you really do need to kind of see what's going on, evaluate, and actually say, is this the mission? Is this what I'm trying to do?
Exactly.
Is this serving, right, those people? So
Right.
I love that. And what kind of resources and programs do you guys offer at TrackGirlz today?
Yeah, so since then, since 2018, now that the structure was in place, then everything started to fall in place. Since then, I've had help come on board and to run the programs with Jennifer Forrester. So she helps run the programs with me. And we've really mapped out the direction of what we want to offer now. And one, of course, is still the workshops. The workshops are one of our core programs, as it has been since we started, to give these direct opportunities for mentorships and hearing from world-class, high-level people from our field. Women in particular, where it can be the case, but men, of course, have a mission to service girls. So it's important to have anyone as a role model that has the same mission as us. So the workshops, really providing those performance tools, mental and physical performance tools and resources for higher education. So our workshops are really important, and they've turned into virtual opportunities, of course, with COVID. So we've had the in-person workshops, but the virtual workshops have been just as impactful. Recently, just partnering with AAU and servicing their membership base. So the workshops, number two, our grant program. So since we've been a nonprofit, our grant program, we partnered with Jackrabbit, who gave us $25,000 this year to directly give to girls to participate in track and field in their local communities. So, through our track program, girls are able to get support for travel costs to track meets, or membership fees to track clubs, or uniforms for high school teams. We've been able to support from an equipment perspective with our skills partnership. So yeah, our grant program, any barriers that can be removed or any resources that we can provide to enable girls to participate in track and field in their local communities, that's the objective with our grant program. And then we started our street races, which is so exciting because we did our first street race in partnership with Tracktown USA at the US Olympic trials in June. And so that was awesome. But with our objective with the street races, we really want to use that as a fundraiser and talk about diversity and inclusion, particularly in the road racing community. The road racing community is a lot of distant races. And the sprinters don't really get any love. As you can see, I had to run my 15 miles from Hood. So, I'm trying to create an environment where we can have conversations about diversity and inclusion in the running community, how we can have sprint races included in the road racing community, and have those conversations and give girls and everyone an opportunity to experience some sprint distances. So the street races are really our fundraising opportunity for the road racing community to know more about our program. So that's something we started this year as well. So, we are now focusing on how we can scale, and really we have our curriculum that we're finishing this year so that we can have third-party organizations and schools and community organizations really be able to manage our curriculum on their own, where they can provide track and field instruction and empowerment activities for girls in particular, that can help them, just have movement and motivation through those adolescent years, because our curriculum is particularly for middle and high school girls.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. I love this, the street races. That sounds really fun and sounds like a great opportunity to get people out there and, get them active and running and community building. I think that's really awesome.
Yes, excited about that.
Yeah. Now, have you done anything, obviously, with everything going on in 2020 and 2021? Did you do anything virtually? Have you had to change any of the programming, or is there anything maybe new that came out of, the last year and a half that maybe wouldn't have before, virtual world?
Yeah, I know, right? A virtual world. I mean, a couple of things, shifted for us in a positive way. Our community really grew through COVID, and also particularly with what happened with the Black Lives Matter movement, because all of that was happening at the same time. And being a Black woman-led organization, it was a lot of conversations that came up that were relevant for us, and helped us grow, because now we were seen. We have been doing this programming since 2015. But just to give you an example, our Instagram was at 3,500 followers in March of 2020, and now we're at 24,000. And that was a direct correlation to, like I said, between how we were able to come out of COVID and through that Black Lives Matter awareness. And what I would say is that one good thing we did was we started having conversations and going live like everyone else was doing. So we started TrackGirlz Conversations is what we called it. And we will bring trailblazers from the track and field community, or we'll say the track girl community, because you don't have to actively be involved in track and field. We had conversations with, at the time, USA, who was a track girl at the University of South Carolina. So of course I had to bring her because she's an alumna of my own school. But we also had Bozeman St. John, who's the CMO of Netflix, who was a high school track girl. And we had Olympians and world champions and people in the fitness community who used to be involved in track and field. So we are not only talking to active track and field participants or the active track and field community, but we're talking to women who are connected to the sport in their own personal ways and how they can empower girls in their own paths. And so that was really, we've had over like 40 conversations at this point with different women to provide those insights and mentorship opportunities for girls to hear their stories. We, of course, like I was saying earlier, turned our workshops into a virtual experience. And when we connected with AAU, we were able to speak with their membership base and give the girls to connect in ways that they haven't connected with, but beyond their track and field events. Now, in between those times, you're able to bring those conversations with the girls to connect in ways outside of track and field. We're still bringing the Olympians to the conversations, to the Zooms, still bringing the nutrition experts, still bringing the mental coaches and mindset coaches to the table. And so that was able to help us scale, in a way that you weren't talking about geographic barriers and travel issues and things like that. So it made it more convenient for everyone to be in the same space at the same time, no matter where you were. So that happened. And when I mentioned the Black Lives Matter movement, when those conversations came up about the importance of diversity and inclusion and oppression, and racial oppression and social justice, then we were able to naturally, organically have those conversations because we were personally affected.
Yeah.
And so being a minority-led business and organization, and having a situation like so pertinent, such as racial and social justice, be a touch point for your own experience in your own organization, because we service Black and brown and white and all in any color. That's what our organization has always been. Track and field itself is one of the most diverse sports that exists. So it organically was already a conversation that was happening in our personal lives and our organization. So for that to happen during that time as well, people started to see us, and that was the difference. And so we already were ready to have those conversations and to service those conversations. And so we took advantage of being able to be prepared for that.
Yeah, I think that's great. And the points you made about accessibility with everything being virtual certainly has made an impact, I think, for a lot of organizations, but also just the fact that you guys really leaned into your identity as the organization that's been doing the work, that's been talking about this.
Yes.
And, just we're able to align that with the national conversation.
Yes.
And for good reason, right? I mean, you guys were doing the work before this became a national conversation.
Exactly.
So I'm glad that you guys benefited from that and got well-deserved recognition for the hard work you've been putting in. I love that. And I love the idea of conversations with folks too, that, it's that saying, like, you can't be what you can't see. So if you see someone in a position that is, that looks like you, and you say, oh, well, if she could do that, so could I. It's may not be what you want to do, but it's an option. And I think just exposing people to the different options is huge.
That's so true. I mean, Sonia Richards, who is an amazing person, but of course, one of the most successful track and field women in our sport. She actually said that quote, and I remember her saying that quote, and it's so true. I mean, even me as a coach, as a relay coach in Tokyo, that was an accomplishment, being a woman and, also being a Black woman, to be in a leadership role like that. And now you're able to see things like that. You're not really seeing things. You're not seeing a woman leading the relay program in ways like that, or you can have those conversations of women leading the charge of creating opportunities in track and field for girls, and things like that. But now if you're starting to see these things happen, then like you say, then you can say, I want to be those things. So that's so important.
Yeah, it's just that awareness that I think is huge, and giving people just the idea that this is something they could do. So I'm glad to hear you guys were able to continue to do that. And I want to look at too, right? You talked about how important track was, not even just as something to do and something you were good at, but like developmentally, and the impact it had on you as a person.
Right.
So are there skills that you've taken from your sports career and your athlete experience that have helped you in your work in corporate America and your work in TrackGirlz? Like, what sticks with you of, I learned this from sport, but it's really helped me in my life?
I mean, the discipline of just seeing things through. I think you can easily get crushed, or you can find yourself discouraged, is what I'm looking for. Discouraged along the journey, because it's not easy. You say you want to be the fastest woman in the world, and you go to track meets and you get last, or you lose a lot. You lose more than you win. And then it's like, well, can I do this? Can I do this? But it's just being persistent. You learn to really, take the whole journey to see the outcome. And I use that same approach to the organization. It's not easy. It's not, when you don't raise the money, or you don't know where the money is going to come from, or you're just tired because as much input as you're putting in doesn't reflect that the outcomes, and you're just like, what can I do to ensure? What can I do to ensure? Sorry, I don't know if you can edit.
Yep, we can.
How do I start over again? Can I start over with that question?
You absolutely can. Yeah. No problem. We'll cut that part out. But yes, no, we're. Yes. No, I was just talking about, the skills that you have as an athlete, what translates to your work today. And you were talking about discipline.
Yes. Okay. Yes. It's the discipline that you have that's going to be so important, just to make sure that you see everything through. Because once you get started on a path and you have a goal for your organization and you start doing the work and the input you're putting in these hours and the time and the effort, but no one really sees that. And the outcome is not always matching as much that goes into it. It's all about tapping in that mindset of, just like when you train, you got to keep working, because when you lose more than you win, that's not going to be the biggest motivator. So that you just got to think about the why. Mm-hmm. And as an athlete, that's what you have to think about, like what's really driving you for you to achieve this goal. And you have to really see yourself accomplishing that. And that's the same way I approach it with TrackGirlz. And that's just, right now, everyone may not see the hustle. Everyone may not see the work that is really going into it. But just trust that if this was put on you to do, like if God really put this on your heart, and if this is really, what you feel that you want to bring to these girls and to make a difference, then you have to be persistent in seeing it come to life. And I have started to see that happen. I have started to see the dollars come in and the yeses start to come instead of the no's. And so, yeah, that's what it is. Just pushing through to really get there and get the result.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think you brought up that great point of there's a lot of work behind the scenes that nobody sees. And when you're in it, it can feel really discouraging to be like, well, nobody's seeing all this hard work I'm doing, but you have to get to that, stage where you're okay putting in the work behind the scenes because down the road it's going to pay off. And it is very similar to athletics. I love that comparison of like you have to train and the cameras aren't there while you're training, right? They're only there on race day. So it's exactly. A great analogy.
It's like that iceberg, right? Like everything is so huge underneath the water and that little tip is sticking out. But
yeah.
Yes. And
exactly.
That's right. But all that work that you got to put in underneath to like stay stable and strong and solid. No one sees that part, but that tip, that's all people see. And you just have to make sure you put the work in the part that no one sees.
Yeah, no, it's great. I think that's a great outlook. And I think everyone probably who started a company or a nonprofit completely relates to that analogy. And I wanted to ask you too, in 10 years, let's say, what do you really want to have accomplished through TrackGirlz and all of your work? Like, is there an end goal? Is there a day where you say, we've accomplished our mission and we don't need TrackGirlz anymore?
Oh my gosh. Say no, we always need TrackGirlz. There's always going to be a track girl. That's the thing. When I think about TrackGirlz, when I was thinking about starting it, it's always going to feed itself because it's always going to be a track girl. And I never want to see it end. But in 10 years, I really want to be an organization that right now I do everything.
Yeah.
So, but not everything. I take that back. I have Jennifer now, and we also have a team that's coming in on helping us with our social media and just managing our program. So, which is great. But yeah, I do see it, as an organization that's fully supported, financially, and that's fully supporting the girls, the mission that we have to really empower girls and remove any barriers for girls to have access to sport. If I can see us really getting girls involved in sport and girls that are really going to college or pursuing their paths, and they are coming back and saying, this door that opened this for me, then I just would love in 10 years to like have hundreds of stories that from girls who can say that.
Yeah.
And if I can and look back, and it can be an organization that I still of course will have my hand in it, but now we have the resources and the ability to be run with not just me and a small team, but a group of people that are behind, like really generating this mission for TrackGirlz, and seeing that effort and that love and that work. I will be happy with that. But I will always want to see TrackGirlz. I will want to see TrackGirlz 10 years from now, 20 years from now.
Yes.
The next generation when I'm not here. But yeah, if I can make it a sustainable business and grow in communities across the world, to where it's sustainable. Like that's what I want in 10 years, is to have sustainable programming across the world.
I love it. Hopefully TrackGirlz stays around forever. Cause like you said, I think it's a movement. It's not just a business, right? It's a community. So hopefully that doesn't disappear. And I love that goal of sustainability. And that's really what everybody's working towards. But for you specifically, it means a lot, because sustainability means more and more girls getting opportunities and doors opening, and changing their futures, and then stepping back and grabbing the hand of the person next to them or behind them and bringing them up with them. So I love it.
Exactly. Yes, you get it.
Yes. Well, 2 more quick questions before I let you go, because I know we're running short on time here. We always ask our guests these questions, so this is just kind of first thing comes to your mind. But what does the word philanthropist mean to you, and what does a philanthropist look like in your eyes?
Yeah, it all comes to service. And, I was at Bible study last night. I was like, I need to get back to Bible study. So I went to Bible study last night. And she was speaking in a way that is exactly what you're asking me about right now. And it was talking about service. And when you really don't think about yourself first, but you really have your point of view is, what is right for our community? What is right for our world? What is right for the next generation? And when you operate in that manner of service, then your decisions are not just going to have outcomes that benefit yourself. And that's what I think about philanthropy. I think about the priority being about everyone, and you're included in that. And so when you think about everyone, you will rise too. And when you're concerned about the welfare of others, and the priority is everyone excelling, then that's what I really think is at the heart of service, and what is at the heart of philanthropy, and that's everyone elevating.
I love that. That is a great takeaway. I love that answer. And tying into that, I want to also ask you, what's one piece of advice you have for athletes at any level who want to speak up about issues that matter to them or want to help drive change? What's one piece of advice you would give them?
I had to learn that. I'm still learning that at 40, because there's so many things that you believe in. And it's, number one, do you have the confidence, but do you think you even have the authority to stand up for what you want? And so I say that understand that, number one, you have the authority to speak up for yourself, if anything. And so stand in that authority and that power of understanding that you represent yourself and your beliefs. And if anyone is going to believe in that, it has to be you. So move forward in that authority that you represent yourself, your beliefs, what you stand for. Stand in that. Stand in the authority that you can be the first, that if it does not exist, that it can exist. And knowing that it's no barrier that is out there that can't be moved in a way that that can limit what you want to do. And if it is existing, that means that you have to do something to get it moved. And that might be the work. And so,
Yeah.
and so, but it's always a way, you know, that's the point. And that's the way I thought about it as an athlete. That's the way I think about it as a person. It's always a way. That's just my core belief of just always finding a way. So just move forward in that authority and understanding that your impact is necessary, that you matter, and that what you bring to the table is needed.
Well, I think that is a great place to end it. That was a powerful answer. So I really appreciate that. And Mechelle, thank you so much for coming on the show, talking about TrackGirlz. Before you go, where can people find TrackGirlz? Where can they connect with you guys, with you, with the organization? Tell us where they could do that.
Yes, I mean, we're coming up. It's a world championship year this year. It's the first time world championships for track and field will be held in the U.S. It's going to be in July in Eugene, Oregon at the new stadium at the University of Oregon. So make sure you follow us at TrackGirlz with a Z. So TrackGirlz with the Z to add a little finesse. But also at Mechelle Lewis Freeman is M-E. No one ever spells my name correctly, of course. You know, I've been having my name spelled wrong my whole life. So every single day, but it's Mechelle Lewis Freeman on Instagram. But follow us because we have so many great things planned for the year as we lead up to the World Championship this year. Street races, we're trying to do something at the New York Marathon coming up in November, and some other plans that we have. But yeah, follow us on Instagram, TikTok. We even have a TrackGirlz TikTok, and that's exactly that name. And on Facebook as well, you can find us at TrackGirlz as well.
Awesome. Well, we'll definitely put all these links in the show notes. People can reach out to you guys and connect and get engaged with all the amazing programming you guys are doing. And thank you so much again for taking the time to be here. It's been a pleasure. And we really appreciate you joining us here at the Big League Philanthropist.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share my story and our organization. I appreciate what you're doing. Clearly, you understand the importance of philanthropy, so continue to do what you do. And we thank you for your presence and your platform.
Oh, well, thank you so much. That means a lot. And we'll see you next time. Everybody have a great day.
Take care.